I bet my business partner $5,000 that I could shoot a professional commercial that increases revenue at our car washes, and you're gonna be the judge by casting your vote in the comments. And on top of that, I'm gonna bring you behind the scenes, showing you every single step in the process that I use to make my iPhone look like a professional camera. Now, to raise the stakes even more, we're filming on an extremely bright day. Gonna be dealing with harsh sunlight nonstop. It's also extremely loud here between the different machines going on. Really so loud. And the road, so capturing clean audio is gonna be a challenge. And then finally, we only have 3 hours to get the entire shoot done, so I'm a little nervous. So we're actually not gonna be using cinematic mode at all throughout this entire commercial shoot. It's great in a quick scenario where you want that blurry background, but when you shoot in cinematic mode, you actually lose control of a lot of the settings and key aspects that make your videos look better. So what we're gonna do in this video is focus on the 3 key things that stop most people from shooting professional content on their smartphones. So the first key is understanding and using the right gear. After that, we have avoiding the common beginner mistakes that make your smartphone footage look like smartphone footage. Key number 3 is understanding the key camera settings that professionals use on their larger cameras that we still have access to on our smartphones. So now we're diving into the actual commercial shoot. We're gonna start with the A-roll, but before that, we need to make Paul's car incredibly dirty, so we're just gonna scoop some gross water on it. I do not feel good about this. Oh yeah, let's get that. There's like a rock in it. I'm not gonna throw that on your car, yeah. All right, let's see how this goes. There you go. Get some, oh, we got a worm. No worms were harmed in the making of this video. How new is this car, Paul? Oh yeah. So what we're doing right here is called a match cut transition. We have the phone mounted on a tripod so the positioning never changes. Paul is gonna deliver his line.
We're called car wash wizards for a reason.
And snap, and on that snap, we're gonna cut to a second clip. Same position, same composition, same everything, but the car will have gone through the car wash and it'll be clean. It'll be a challenge getting the car and Paul in the same exact spot, but I can cover it up with like a camera flash transition just to mask it a little bit. So now we get the car wash so we can do the next clip of the match cut.
We're called car wash wizards for a reason. We only use environmentally friendly soaps and a little bit of magic to clean your car without touching it.
The first piece of gear that we really need to talk about is this gimbal right here, because traditional smartphone footage looks kind of bad because most people just hold it in their hand, it's shaky, it doesn't look professional, even with the internal stabilization. When you mount your phone on a gimbal like this Hohem M6, it stabilizes the shots, allowing you to get long sweeping movements that are all smooth and professional looking, which just really elevates the look of your content. So as we're filming this A-roll, a crucial piece of gear is the microphone. Paul is hooked up with the DJI Wireless Mic 2, super high quality, and you'll notice we're actually not recording directly to the phone. There's no transmitter or receiver. What I love about this mic is you can record internally to the transmitter that he has in his pocket. Now the next piece of gear is a lens, and the lenses that I'm gonna be using today are all from ShiftCam. They're probably my favorite brand when it comes to smartphone lenses. I'll be switching off primarily between the ultra-wide lens and then their telephoto lens. The reason I'm using those instead of the built-in ultra-wide and the built-in telephoto on the iPhone is because when you use a third-party lens, you put it over the main camera, which has the largest sensor and just the most powerful camera behind it of all the built-in cameras. By switching back and forth between these different lenses, we're able to get much more diversity in our shots, so every scene just doesn't look like it was filmed at the same exact focal length. Up after that, we have an ND filter. Now, as you can see, we're filming in the shade because it is bright out today. And when we get to this section where we talk about our camera settings, you'll see that sometimes when it's super bright, there's really nothing you can do with the settings outside of introducing a new piece of gear, which is an ND filter. Now that we're filming the B-roll of the video, we can tackle the beginner mistakes that you definitely want to avoid. There are tons we could probably talk about here, but I have 3. And if you only take these 3 things away from this video, it's gonna 10x your content. The first mistake is having no movement at all or having a ton of unprofessional movements. What professional content creators do, they film individual shots that are like 3 to 4 seconds long with very specific and controlled movements in them. Usually this is a very simple push in or pull out movement, maybe a truck, which is just moving the camera from left to right. And then one final one I try to always use is a tilt down or tilt up while pushing in or moving away from our subject. Focusing on filming every single action you capture with just 2 to 3 of those movements will really improve your content. The next big mistake people make is they only film with one camera angle, which makes piecing together your edit really hard because you only have one shot to make it work. I always try to make a note, similar to the movements that we just talked about, to film one scene from multiple different camera angles. One is usually a wide, one is a tight, those are really easy. And then I'll try to mix in a really unique shot like a POV. Whenever I'm shooting content, I try to challenge myself to think of the most unique angle anyone would ever shoot from. So right now I have, just using a cheap friction arm from Amazon, I've mounted the phone to the little spray wand here, so I get a super unique perspective that will just surprise people when they're watching the video. Then finally, our third common beginner mistake is not factoring your lighting into your equation. Now, we are really challenged today with how harsh the sunlight is. We really only have the option of filming in the shadows, in the shade, to get good quality footage. But every other time that we're filming not in the shade, what I'm doing is I'm putting my hand up, rotating it around until I find the one angle to film at where the lighting will be somewhat even across our entire subject. In certain scenarios, you really can't avoid harsh lighting when you're filming in the middle of the day, but that little tip by itself can help a ton. So we are back in the studio now to talk about key number 3, your camera settings. Most people don't know this, but your smartphone has access to almost all of the same settings that professional cameras do. You just need to know how to access them and control them. Now, for this commercial, I've been using the iPhone 15 Pro Max, but don't you dare run away and think that what we're talking about doesn't apply to older iPhones or even Android phones as well. On iPhones, I recommend using the Blackmagic camera app, which is super powerful. We actually have an entire section of our 14-day filmmaker course dedicated to this app. Now, if you're on an Android phone, you likely don't even need a third-party app. For example, the Samsung Galaxy phones, which are probably the most popular Android phones for video, in the native camera app, you just slide over to the Pro camera mode, click on that, and you'll be able to follow along with all the same settings changes that we talk about with the iPhone. All right, so here are the actual settings you want to copy. For this commercial, I filmed at 24 frames per second, which is usually referred to as the Hollywood standard. It does a really good job of mimicking the same way our eyes perceive natural motion. I didn't change my frame rate at all during this entire shoot, but the only time I may have would have been if I wanted slow motion, at which point I would have increased the frame rate to 60 frames per second. Up next, we have an extremely important setting, the shutter speed. And the very black and white rule is that you want the denominator of your shutter speed to be twice your frame rate. So because we were filming at 24 frames per second, our shutter speed would be 1/48th of a second. And this is crucial for getting the proper motion blur in your videos, which will really improve the way they look. Now, if you go outside and copy this setting for shutter speed, you're likely going to see an image that looks like this, like super overexposed. Just remember to, earlier in this video, the ND filter that we talked about in the gear section is crucial because it cuts down on all of that extra light, allowing us to keep the settings where we want them to be for the motion blur without having an overexposed image. When you copy this setup and you have a variable ND filter, whenever the lighting changes, you actually don't need to change your settings. You can just rotate the ND filter, helping you nail the perfect exposure every single time without changing the settings. After that, I kept my ISO as low as possible, and then for white balance, since we were filming outdoors in the sun, I set it to 5600 Kelvin, which is the same color temperature as the sun. For resolution, I filmed in 4K, which is the highest that my iPhone 15 can do. And then finally, we have to talk about the picture profile. On most phones, I stick to the standard Rec 709 picture profile, which is basically what your phone defaults to if you're not filming in HDR, which most of the time, I don't like filming in HDR. However, on the iPhone 15, Apple introduced the Apple Log picture profile, which is super powerful. And I will say, for really important shoots like this one, pretty much always filming in log. What log is basically a really flat picture profile that might look a little funny in camera, but it increases the total dynamic range that your camera is capable of capturing. This means that you're gonna get a slightly higher quality image, but it requires you to understand how to color correct and color grade your footage, which is definitely an advanced topic. Now, the good news for you is I've actually created an Apple Log LUT, which is basically a color grading preset that you can just drop on your footage and it will take it from this to this in seconds. And I'm gonna give this LUT to you for free, but first let me tell you about 14-day filmmaker. At contentcreator.com, we have an online program called 14-Day Filmmaker that has revolutionized the way people learn how to shoot and edit professional content. At the time of recording this video, we've taught over 130,000 students and the results have been incredible. Have you ever wanted someone to just tell you exactly what you need to know with no fluff and no wasted time? Well, that's exactly what we do in 14-Day Filmmaker. We basically take 8 months of learning on YouTube and install it into your brain over the course of just 14 days for less than the price of a trip to the grocery store. Not to mention, you get hours of bonus content, cheat sheets, downloadable sound effects, practice footage, and lifetime access to our private community where I personally host a live weekly Q&A call where I can answer your questions in real time. In the core curriculum, you will learn the gear, the settings, the lighting, the composition, the movements, how to tell stories, how to edit like a pro, social media training, YouTube training, and commercial training. It's all in there, and anyone who signs up using the link in the description below is actually going to get 3 courses in total. One that focuses on helping you master the shooting and editing process on your smartphone, another course that is all about professional gear, and then finally a 3rd course that is on the scientific process of telling incredible stories with video. Between these 3 courses, you will have everything you need to launch your own channel, grow your brand or business, or start a freelance videography business like Lance here, who was able to land a $5,000 job in his first month after taking the program. Like I said before, the link to enroll is in the description below. And if you're like, all right, Anthony, I'm done with you, just give me the free color grading LUT, there's a link beneath the 14-Day Filmmaker link where you can get your free Apple log LUT. And by the way, that same LUT and tons of other downloadable assets are included in 14-Day Filmmaker. So I think you should just sign up for that. All right, enough selling, back to the video. So that officially concludes our shoot. We didn't have much time, but now I've got to go home and spend 2 to 3 hours editing the final product. You're about to see that, and you have to let me know in the comments, if you saw this commercial, would you want to come to our car wash or would you not? And please be kind, because I don't want to lose $5,000.
If you want to have a clean, shiny car all the time, you need to be washing it regularly. But understandably, not everyone has the budget for auto detailing. You don't want to drag your car through one of those dark tunnels that beats it up with rollers, and maybe you just don't have the time to wash your car as much at home as you'd like. That's exactly why our team created the very first touchless car wash membership in Asheville, North Carolina, with 4 convenient locations. For the price of just 2 of the dark tunnel washes, you can actually wash your car 10 times at Car Wash Wizards. We're called Car Wash Wizards for a reason. We only use environmentally friendly soaps and a little bit of magic to clean your car without touching it. Your membership will work at any of our 4 convenient Asheville locations. Guess what? We're open 24/7. So if you want to get the crud off your car at 3 a.m., we got you covered. Now, all 4 of our Asheville locations are touchless car washes. So that means we're not going to do any damage to your vehicle. Signing up for your membership is super easy. Just visit one of our locations and pull up to the kiosk. Select which membership you'd like, enter your phone number, and there you go. The wash will activate for you immediately after you buy. And as you're enjoying your first wash, you'll get a text with a link to download and sign into the app with your phone number. Then, when you're coming back to use your membership, pull up to the kiosk, you can open up the app, scan your QR code, or enter your member number, and the wash will activate immediately.